103. Study Session 6. Natural Law Theory of Morality. Introduction. In this study session, we'll explore natural law theory of morality. We'll examine the extent to which it provides an adequate standard for morality Fee 103. Study Session 6. Natural Law Theory of Morality. Introduction. In this study session, we'll explore natural law theory of morality. We'll examine the extent to which it provides an adequate standard for morality and a guide for determining the moral worth of human actions, personality traits, and social institution practices, and the problems inherent in it. Learning outcomes. When you have studied this session, you should be able to present the main claims of the natural law theory of morality and discuss the problems emanating from the theory. Natural law theory of morality. An ideal starting point for a discourse on the natural law theory of morality is to begin with an analysis of the term natural, affirming that a quality, tendency, or predisposition is natural to a being suggests that it is part of the essential constituents of the being that makes it what it is. This is the sense in which we employ the term natural in the statements. It is natural for dogs to bark as a sign of aggression, and it is natural for goats to eat grass. This usage of the word natural connotes what is normal, such that when we say of an attribute that it is natural to a being, we mean that it is normal. Hence, saying that it is natural for humans to desire companionship means that it is normal and not out of place. The above suggests that what is unnatural will then be what is abnormal. It is also of interest to note that what is natural might vary from being to being, such that while it is natural for dogs to bark, this is definitely unnatural for goats. Be that as it may, all animals and humans have a number of natural qualities, natural in common. For instance, they are all by nature have a need for food and also a drive for sex. However, there is another sense in which the term natural might be understood. Here, when we speak of the nature of a thing, we may mean its ideal nature. In this sense, a gap is identified between the ideal nature of a thing and its actual manifestation. For instance, rationality is identified as constituting a natural quality of man, but this might be construed as an ideal nature because it is evident that quite a lot of people behave in ways that are irrational. Thus, the term natural in this context may not refer to the actual ways a being manifests its character, but the ways it should be given a variety of facts about it. The question now is, in which of these two senses do the natural law theorists of morality employ the word natural? When they maintain that moral laws are natural laws, that enables humans to attain their ideal nature and ideal natural relationships between one another in society. What exactly do they mean? In order to discern the actual sense in which the natural law theorists employ the expression laws of nature, we must first understand that it is ambiguous, having a descriptive and also a prescriptive connotation. Used descriptively, a law of nature is a universal generalization describing regularities that have been discovered in nature. This is the sense in which the expression is used in the sciences. In this sense, it is the same as physical or scientific laws. In its prescriptive sense, natural laws are prescriptions of nature that are meant to guide human conduct and relationships. They are universal precepts or commands intended by nature to regulate human behavior. Hence, for the natural law theorists, natural laws are universal prescriptive principles set in place by nature to regulate human behavior, and they basically enjoin people to do good and refrain from evil. Advocates of the natural law regard it as a primordial and fundamental law which provides a suitable foundation for all other laws. It is seen as the ideal law and the ultimate source of all laws. For them, it is the source from which all laws derive their legal features and obligatory force, having in itself both legal and moral features. Virtually all natural law theorists maintain that the law of nature is a law of reason, in the sense that it accords with the rule of reason and is also discoverable by reason. Its primary principles are said to be self-evident to reason, while other secondary principles are derivable from the primary one. The most basic of the principles of natural law is that good should be done while evil should be avoided. In any discourse on the natural law, emphasis may be either laid on the obligation or the prohibitions that are imposed on people or the rights it confers on them. For instance, in the ancient and medieval era, emphasis was on the obligations and prohibitions of the natural law. In contemporary times, however, emphasis has shifted to rights, moral laws of nature. For the natural law theorists, moral laws of nature that are applicable to human beings are based on the inherent nature of humans, that is, the way of life and the tendencies to behave in certain ways, or characteristics of humans. According to natural law theorists such as St. Thomas Aquinas and Aristotle, each kind of thing or being has its own nature that specifies the conditions for its survival and flourishing, as well as the way of life or mode of existence appropriate for it. It is in this regard that it is said that human nature determines the correct moral laws of nature that human beings should obey. Aristotle was of the opinion that the clue to the way of life appropriate for members of the species is whatever makes members of that species different from members of other species. Thus, the key to the way of life appropriate for humans is to be found in what distinguishes humans from other beings. Aristotle identified rationality as a feature that distinguishes humans from other creatures and infers that the way of life that is appropriate for a human being must be closely related to the capacity of reasoning. He affirms that a contemplative life dedicated to the acquisition of knowledge and understanding is essential for human flourishing. Aquinas agrees with Aristotle that reason defines humanity and separates humans from other creatures. As such, he maintains that every will that is at variance with reason would always be evil, and that the rule and measure of human acts should always be reason. He says further that all the things that humans have a natural inclination towards are usually apprehended by reason to be good and things to be pursued. On the contrary, those things that humans are averse to are considered by reason to be evil and things we should avoid. Perhaps the most basic human inclination is for self-preservation, and it is for this reason that Aquinas, for example, says of the law of nature that it prescribes that human beings should always act in ways that will enhance their self-preservation. As such, suicide, for instance, is deemed to be immoral because it negates the natural inclination for self-preservation. Problems with natural law theory of morality. Natural law theorists presuppose that it is morally right for humans to act in accordance with their inherent nature and morally wrong to act contrary to these. A problem with this assumption, however, is that it is not every action that accords with human nature that is morally good. Neither is it always the case that every action that is contrary to human nature is morally bad. For instance, there is the opinion expressed by scholars as Friedrich Nietzsche and John Ruskin that humans, and more especially the male genre, are naturally aggressive and predisposed to violence. This position appears validated by the fact that war and violence appears to be a universal feature of humans in all historical epochs. The question we should attempt to answer in the light of the above is: should humans act in accordance with this natural predisposition towards aggression and violence? Going by the thesis of the natural law theorist, it will be morally right for humans to behave violently and aggressively, and wrong for them to behave in a contrary manner. This position is obviously absurd and contrary to our ordinary sense of morality, thereby suggesting that the position of the natural law theories is untenable. Usually, morality requires not that we act in accordance with our inherent nature or natural inclination as humans, but that we tame and transcend this in order to engage in actions considered to be morally right. Indeed, the purpose of moral education and socialization is to teach and encourage people to undermine certain natural inclinations so as to carry out morally acceptable actions. Another problem with the position of natural law theorists relates to the claim that the primary principles of natural law are self-evident to reason, while other secondary principles are derivable from the primary one. Thomas Aquinas, for example, maintains that such acts as homosexuality and adultery are contrary to reason because they violate certain self-evident moral principles discovered by reason, which prohibits them. However, when we say of a principle, or perhaps a statement, that it is self-evidently true, what we ordinarily mean is that it is necessarily true and its negation is self-contradictory and cannot possibly be true. For instance, the statement, "A bachelor is an unmarried man," is self-evidently true. It cannot possibly be true that it is not the case that a bachelor is an unmarried man. With the above understanding of self-evident truth, many philosophers have argued that moral principles are not self-evident. For instance, the moral principles prohibiting theft and the killing of innocent people are not self-evidently true because their negations do not involve any logical contradiction. The negation of the moral principle, "Killing innocent people is morally prohibited," is, killing of innocent people is not morally prohibited, and it is not a logical contradiction. Given the above, it is either advocates of the natural law theory give up the idea that they are self-evident moral principles, or provide a plausible idea of self-evidence that will support their position that they are self-evident moral principles. Advocates of the natural law theory of morality affirms that basic moral principles are prescriptions of reason, and they seem to assume that reason would always prescribe the same moral principles for all people at all times. However, the truth is that people differ on their conceptions of those things that are good and those that are bad. For instance, while some people maintain that homosexuality is morally reprehensible, many other people see nothing wrong with it. And to be sure, both parties could possibly claim to have arrived at their conclusions on the basis of reason. Thus, on the basis of available facts, the faculty of reason could lead us to different conclusions on moral matters. Study session summary. In this study session, we examine the natural law theory of morality. It defines moral goodness or rightness in terms of acting in accordance with human nature or the inherent nature of man. This theory affirms that the morally good action is the one that is prescribed by reason, and goes on to specify that reason would always prescribe only to those actions that are accord with human natural inclinations as morally good or right. In addition, the theory considers the moral prescriptions of reason to self-evidence. We also discussed some of the major problems with the natural law theory. This relates to the ideas that human natural inclinations constitute the basics for moral good actions and the moral prescription of reason are self-evident. End of study session 6. Thank you for listening.